So let's go ahead and get started. I want to say welcome to everybody. My name is Stacey Fritz. I'm one of the patient advocates for Believe Big, but I am also the moderator of this show, Food for Thought. And today you get to have me solo. I hope that's a good thing. And we have an interesting topic today. It was one that I thought was timely given the questions that I receive about nutrition. So today what we're going to be talking about is the various resources that we not only recommend, but we also are able to connect you to. That's not to say that it's an exhaustive list, that there aren't other fabulous resources, but today we're going to be covering what I think is one of the biggest questions that I get based on the patients that I have the pleasure to work with, and that is the kinds of things that you are going to be getting that are free resources, things that are paid, things are in a group situation, things that are in an individual situation. And then I added some other resources that we can talk about at the end. Teeny bit of housekeeping before we get started. I love all of your questions. I will get you the answer to those questions, but unfortunately with this kind of webinar, what we're going to try to do is stay off of specific individual questions about nutrition. It's not that I can't answer them, and it's not that I can't point you in the right direction, but for this webinar, we're going to try to stay a little bit higher level. So that said, we're going to get started. I'd like you to put it in the chat. I want to ask the question, what is the one, if there was only one burning question that you had about nutrition services, the kind of nutrition, what is your burning question that you just can't seem to find the answer to, or you showed up for today that you would like the answer to? I'm asking you this question because I have an agenda for us, but I don't want to assume that it's completely your agenda. So I'm just going to give you a moment, and please, I have somebody with me, my dear colleague and coworker, Kristen, who's going to be watching the chat for me. And hopefully by the end, I will have answered or at least led you in the right direction with those questions. So go ahead and take a moment and put your question in the chat if you have one. So today, what we're going to be talking about is our free options for nutrition, our paid options, and then we're going to continue on with what it looks like in a group situation, what it looks like in a one-on-one situation, and then we'll finish it off with additional resources. Our free resource, funny enough, that I would start it off with today, what we're doing right now, one of the things that I love about working with Believe Big is that I get to do this with you all. I'm very passionate about nutrition, and we started this a couple of years ago. So you obviously on the call are aware that Food for Thought is a free resource that you can access whenever you want. So it's not just about today. Now, Melissa, my friend Melissa, who is calling in from Illinois, had a question before we got started about the various kinds of nutrition plans, if you will, or the ways to address nutrition. So for example, keto or the Mediterranean diet. I hate the word diet because it just drums up all kinds of different definitions, but plans or the way you are going to eat. I have probably 20 to 22 episodes in the library. I'm not sure if you all are aware of that, but we do Food for Thought monthly. And Melissa, I'm addressing you in particular because there are quite a few episodes that talk about just that same question that you had, whether or not which one is better for you, which one is going to promote healing the most. I can give you the short answer, and that is the answer that nobody likes to hear is it depends. That is one of the reasons why we do customized nutrition, is because everybody's body is different. Everybody responds to food differently. And until we know that kind of feedback, we have to be willing to be flexible in how we are eating towards healing. So that is one of the best reasons to connect with some of our resources, is that you can drill down for specifics. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but I want to remind you, please, if there are questions that you might have that we may have done a session on, typically I run Food for Thought webinars with a certified oncology nutritionist. I do that intentionally because while I can speak on nutrition and feel really good about the education and the educational path that I came from, I don't have a specific certification or degree in oncology nutrition. I'm quite passionate about giving you the information giving you the information that is research based. So the gals that I've had the pleasure to work with, they come on and we go back and forth with whatever topic we're talking about. You are free and welcome to take screenshots of what I'm talking about today, but please know that between Kristen and I, we will make sure that you have this recording that you can go back and click on these hyperlinks, because what I did was put the hyperlink in here that leads you to our website where you can find the resource of Food for Thought session. So we've talked about Food for Thought sessions. Immediately, just know that's something you can tap into. I encourage that when we get to the end of this webinar, I'm going to explain why we want to tap into free first. Okay. The next one, Remission Nutrition, is an organization that we work with very closely. One thing that I really love about Remission Nutrition is I love lots of things about them. I enjoy all of their oncology nutritionists. They're all fabulous in my opinion, but they have a variety of different options. And so Remission Nutrition, you can feel really good about certified oncology nutritionists that work at this place. And this is one of their options is group support. And group support, why I like this is because, as you all have probably known on your journey, if you've addressed a variety of different topics to try to tackle, nutrition being one of them, sometimes these paid versions, they just get a little unruly for the budget, if you follow what I mean. So group support is a little less expensive, and you can, they offer a group membership, and you can see $279 or $50 a month, and you can come together with other folks that are on this journey with a certified oncology nutritionist, ask your really important questions if they're not so specific to your particular diagnosis. They also talk about other things within this group setting. They call it the Nest. And I actually had the opportunity to join them as a guest to speak on breath work. So it's not just that nutritional piece. If you're looking for, when I say support, I don't necessarily mean a support group, because they're tackling beyond just support. It's a lot of education. If this is something that interests you, please, again, you'll get the recording to the PowerPoint and you can go to Remission Nutrition and look at the Nest. Maybe you have some comments if anybody has joined the Nest who's on the call and want to speak on that. Kristen, any questions for me on the Nest?
None for the Nest yet, no.
Okay. All right, great. All right. So this next one is also a paid resource. We're back at Remission Nutrition. Now, I'm going to ask Kristen to repeat the question because I did put a bullet point in there, the nutrigenomic analysis. It's the interpretation of the nutrition genomes genetic test. And I believe the question, is it necessary? Did I get that right, Kristen?
Correct. Is the individualized testing for nutrition, like nutrition genome, always necessary?
Okay. I go back to my very unpopular comment. Listen, I have been on this journey with 2 family members now, and I can feel very confident in saying the answer is always, it depends. It truly depends. When you get into nutritional counseling and individualized consulting packages and whatnot, weighing the cost and weighing the big value that you are getting with them as it relates to drilling down to a test like the nutrition genome, I answer it that way because it depends on where you are on the journey and what it is that we are looking to find out. Are we trying to go as deep as we possibly can? They offer the nutrition genome, you get a nice report back, but it is what I would call heady, meaning there's a lot of information in that report, right? So if you are somebody that needs to have that breakdown, I think it's extremely valuable. I did that test, and you know what? It is pages and pages of content, and it took me a little while to get through it. And this is something that I study daily. Whoever asked that question, I would invite you to come off of mute and ask me more about what it is that you are trying to find out, whether or not it's necessary or not. If you're on your healing journey and numbers are trending in what we would consider the correct healing direction, I don't know. But if you are somebody that is really struggling and you're trying to drill down to find out what is causing inflammation, what is shifting the numbers in not the right direction, I think there's value. Do you know, Kristen, who asked that question, that we might get a little bit more to that?
That was me, Candace. Hi, Stacey. I asked the question specifically for my type of cancer I had. It's very rare. There's monitoring is extreme in terms of 3 tests every 3 months for the first 2 years. I'm no sign of cancer right now, but I'm only 6 months out of treatment. The statistics are poor with reoccurrence and longevity. So I asked the question because there's lots of things I could be doing and using my resources.
Yes,
And I specifically asked a naturopath I'm working with about this, and she said exactly that. Like, you get a lot of information.
a lot.
And maybe that's too much right now for you. Maybe the things we're doing, we need to see how they're going, etc. But I'm also a researcher by nature,
Oh,
an attorney. I like to have all the information.
sure.
So and I don't know much about the test and how much more it gives you than I already have through other tests. But also, I'm following a particular diet, and I've listened to the Believe Big podcast and
Yeah.
Evelise and how keto diet wasn't working for her. And I'm not following a keto diet at all. So I'm sorry to ramble on, but I guess it's just I'm following a very clean diet given to me by a naturopath. I think it's working. I have no evidence of cancer right now, but all of the things I said before make the stakes really high.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I understand exactly what you're saying. And so the way I like to frame this out is if we are looking for metabolic flexibility or even the word balance, those numbers, those tests that you're getting, I think you said you get 3 on a regular basis. Here's how I pull that lens out and I'm looking at reports when I see the body is in balance, right? So let's go with that. If there's a reason that testing is
Oh, I
coming
don't,
back and it's
can I,
wonky and
yeah,
they're showing, I'm sorry?
can I, can I just interject? I meant monitoring testing by conventional standards. So it's a PET scan, a brain MRI, and
Mm.
a lumbar puncture. So it's just really to say, is there cancer there or is it gone?
And how about blood tests and looking a little deeper at numbers in that direction?
Yeah, no, there's no kind of blood test for the cancer I had. And I do regular blood testing through my naturopath and my regular conventional oncologist. And those are all good.
Yeah.
Inflammatory markers. I look like the picture of health, except for I have cancer in the membranes of my brain and spinal fluid. I'm sorry. I know we don't want to get particular on
Yeah.
cancers, but
No, I
um,
appreciate that, Candace. I guess my recommendation to you for this particular question is as follows. Instead of going really deep into packages and genetic testing and whatnot, I think based on the fact that you said it's a rare diagnosis, and I think it's worth having a consult. That's what again, when people ask me, Stacey, what would you do? I base it on the fact, okay, what is it that I'm trying to achieve? We're trying to get to NED. And if our numbers are in a place where I'm just collecting information, I frame this out for both my mom and my brother to say, who do we want on this team? Who am I looking forward? Am I looking at right now? And I'm looking at what's happened in the past, right? And so even if I don't need that person, say right here, right now, at this moment, I know where I'm going. So as you continue to thrive and you continue to heal, you're putting things like a specific test or this category of nutrition, you're putting a placeholder here for your team members, right? And so just getting the information in check and asking an oncology nutritionist, what do you think the value is for my particular diagnosis? Again, that's one of the reasons why I don't do the show by myself is in full disclosure, being very specific on oncology nutrition. The stakes are high, Candace, as with for all of us, and wanting to know valuable information right now. Remember what the goal is. The goal is NED and balance and healing, right? So any decisions that, this is just my opinion, any decisions that you make are based on what does this add towards my healing? What kind of information is this going to send me anxious and make me more worried, or is this something that I want
yeah.
to tackle right now? So that's how I
And
would come up.
I think that's a perfect answer because I think that's why the naturopath I'm working with said, let's just table it
Yeah,
because we have a lot that we're doing right now.
yeah, Yeah, it's funny because for me, the looking at balance and healing, it looks to me in my brain like a report card or a scorecard. What are the metrics that say that I'm in balance? And what are the metrics that say, oh, it's time to like shift gears a little bit? So whatever those numbers are for you, Candace, that's how I base my next step. Right. So let's keep going with this. And again, I really appreciate the question. Feel free to reach out to me offline and I will connect you with that one time only consult if that's something that you are interested in. How's that sound? Okay.
Yep, got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I want to say one more comment about this one-on-one nutrition. Now, please, big disclaimer, whether it's Remission Nutrition or anybody else that I talk about, if you see where it says on that second bullet, individual sessions and consulting package, they start at $400 a session. I am opening up the conversation here because it's my tagline, I feel like, about cancer. It is the full-time job that you did not apply for, right? And so at the end of the day, you have got to figure out just stabbing and just trying to figure out what's the next best thing. I like a plan. I like a plan. And there is we have to eat. And so I understand that something like Remission Nutrition with one-on-one nutrition or somebody else can be costly. So my goal today is to really just review options that we tend to send out to level set your expectations, because there's always a place to enter into this conversation, paid or free. And my hope is that when you finish this webinar today, is that it's empowering you to say you don't have to wait to pay for a service. There's just knowing that it's available to you and the why that you're going to go about paying for a more specific one-on-one. I cannot say enough about the ladies at Remission Nutrition. It's who we partner with for the most part. There are all of them in that picture are fabulous, and they've been on the show to one degree or another. And I highly recommend you giving them at least a look-see to decide, is this something that one, fits in my budget and doesn't cause me a ton of financial stress? And two, can I figure out how I want to use them, whether it's that group or the one-on-one based on my particular situation? So that's what they do there. Again, if I'm happy to connect you with any of them, and we have a wonderful relationship with Remission Nutrition. I know that they're not the only option, but they are a big option that we send folks to. Consider those. All right. So the next one, is there anybody local that is with us today? Local meaning Maryland. Here's another one-on-one oncology nutritionist that I'd like you to take a look at if you are Maryland-based. Paula can also see folks in other states. It just has to be within her license. And that's something you would have to ask her. She is going to be similar to the ones that I just showed you with Remission Nutrition. She's fabulous. She's on the show quite a bit as well. In fact, she is the gal that I started. She was my first person that I interviewed. So if you are Maryland based, I cannot say enough about Paula Weinberg. She's also unbelievable in terms of communication and email. And if you look on her website, which is her business is Health Span Nutrition, she has some very cool options. For example, a visit to the grocery store, a virtual visit to the grocery store. She's got some great recipes on there. Paula is also a dear friend of mine. And like I said, take a look at her website. Even if you are not Maryland based, she's somebody that I would be curious to know if you could reach out to and get some general questions answered during a discovery call. She's really easy to work with also. So I'm going to stop there, make sure we don't have any questions about paid resources one-on-one with Paula and then the team at Remission Nutrition, and then also group with Remission Nutrition. Last one is the free resource with Food for Thought. Any questions based on the ones that came in that are applicable to anything we covered so far?
We have some more specific questions, such as, do you see the value of reaching optimal fasting insulin? And is there a good test to measure all needed micronutrients?
Interesting. Hold those questions and let me get to my last couple and then we'll pick those apart because those are a little bigger than just quick answers. I want to be super careful about how I word this. I'm speaking from experience in terms of my family. One of the things that was incredibly eye-opening was the second the diagnosis was delivered, how much anxiety was brought to the table when it came to food. All of a sudden, my brother lost his power. I'll speak about him primarily, meaning all of a sudden he didn't know anything that he was doing. He just kept saying, I don't think this is right. I don't think this is right. So for me, it was super important to calm that conversation down, knowing that there was lots of places that I could go for information that were not expensive, not a paid service. And for me, the way I learn best and the way at that time my brother was learning it the best was to be able to educate myself in a way, if you don't even know the questions that you want to ask, that's painful for me to go and pay for a service, right? So these are a handful of books that I found extraordinarily helpful simply to educate myself, and not a lot of money. And also, of course, come along with that audible option, meaning you could listen to them. That first one, that Cancer Fighting Kitchen, that was one of the very first books that I purchased after my brother's diagnosis, just to get a handle on, okay, what are they cooking with? What does that look like? And I found this book to be really good for just getting me started. I also found books like Chris Beat Cancer, one that we recommend regularly, Radical Remission. That's not everything to do with nutrition. There's a nutritional component. And then I wanted to learn things like what Melissa asked earlier. Everybody's talking about keto for cancer. Come to find out, not everybody thrives using keto nutrition. So having a wide variety of resources just to get you started, if you are somebody that needs to digest information, not to be funny, but to digest information at your pace, I found that these handful of books, and again, you don't have to purchase these particular books, but getting yourself educated before you go and do specific individualized or customized nutrition would be a recommendation that I have. So just a little hack there. When I read these books, I also felt like when you start to see redundancy in information, that's a good thing, right? And so for me, as I started this process of learning and educating myself further, and I already had a leg up because I was already in the nutrition world, but specifically based on my brother's diagnosis is what I was going after. And I found these books were books that I tended to come back to. I appreciate that, Melissa. And again, there's not one quote unquote cancer resource that is got all the answers. There's also the metabolic approach to cancer is a good one. So if you find these, please feel free to share with us as well, because again, making sure that we have the resources, the library of resources, both paid and then free or almost free, are important to us. We don't want you to feel like you are scrambling and feeling like you are trying to figure it all out, because you have a lot that you need to address every single day, the job that you didn't apply for, right? I'm going to stop because I see lots of questions coming in. Kristen, fire off a few that I might be able to answer quickly.
Let's see. Do you recommend the longevity diet by Victor Longo? The value of ketones on any diet plan? And resources for local produce, meats, and
Oh, that's a great one too. They're all great questions. They're all great questions. And so hang on to the one about do I recommend? Because yes, I do. And you can feel really good about those recommendations as well. I'm going to move on to my last one so we can tackle these questions. All right. Again, back to my free. Again, Melissa seems to be the one that is answering. And Candace, feel free to come off mute. These are my top podcasts that I refer to. And of course, the one that I'm going to recommend the most with 5-star plus is, of course, Eviliese's our Believe Big podcast. There is some phenomenal podcast episodes in our podcast. I mean, I don't even know what number she's on now, but you want to talk about great interviews and all different kinds of topics. Just go through on this link and take a look. And I guarantee you will find something that you can enter into this conversation with. And what I love about the podcast is so easy to understand. Sometimes it's easier to listen to focus that way than it is to use the written word. Again, it just depends on the kind of learner that you are, but sometimes just sitting there and listening to an episode is a little bit easier than trying to tackle a couple chapters in a book. I'll ask the question just one more time. I'm sure all of you have listened to Believe Big's podcast, but any of these other ones jump out at you that you've really found some value? I hate to use the words enjoy because I'm not sure that this topic is enjoyable, but informational and relatable, I should say.
I'm driving, so I don't know. I can't see what you're putting up there, but I like 5 to Thrive, I think it's called.
Oh, 5 to Thrive. I'll add it to our resources. I have up there, Candace, You, Me, and the Big C, but Beyond Cancer, Eating with Cancer, the Chris Beat Cancer Show, and then our show.
Yeah, and I don't know if you're only speaking about nutrition, but obviously Radical Remission is good too.
Of course, Radical Remission and also their website. So fabulous information for you to be able to filter down by diagnosis and age and protocol to be able to connect with folks that are sharing the journey with you and figuring out ways that we push healing. And even though at least our organization is really passionate about not giving a specific formula to healing, because again, not that I would love nothing more than to tell you what to do to get there, but everybody is different and you need to create the plan and the team that is supports where you are on the journey. So these are a few, and what did you say, Candace? 5 for what?
I think it's 5 to Thrive. That's what it's called. It's very bite-sized, like 30 minutes each. It's not obviously all about nutrition, and it's about chronic illness and cancer. It's a naturopath in the Pacific Northwest.
Nice, nice. It reminds me of a book that I just finished, and it's also an audio book. I don't know if any of you all have read Outlive with Dr. Peter Attia. As a really great resource. It's not just about cancer. And again, I was trying not to overwhelm the conversation, but like I said, I'm giving you a sprinkling of the ones that are my go-to. And I really, my bigger wish for you all is that you take back the power and you understand that you have access to information that doesn't require you to place a phone call just yet. And so I'm really hoping that you take a look at some of these free resources and get your plan in place. I'm not deterring you from going to Remission Nutrition or going to using the Nest or going to Paula. I'm not trying to convince you any which way. What I'm trying to do is get you to get yourself a little bit educated on the topic of nutrition before we go and pay for services that can be cost prohibitive sometimes. And there's nothing worse than having somebody say, I really wanted to do this, but I can't afford to do it. So I'm giving you a few more things to consider before then. All right. My top, just to get you started, let's say you are on this call and you are just getting started on this journey. I get asked this question, and please note that I'm not prescribing or telling you what to do. But if I had to narrow it down, I tried to narrow it down to 3, but I couldn't come to 3. I had to do 4. If I was just getting started on this journey, and before I even read a book or started a podcast or made a phone call, our American diet, it's called SAD, right? And it's sad for a reason, right? We are a country that is in poor health, in part because of this nutrition problem that's going on. That said, I'm going to answer the question about the meats and the subscription during this slide, but here's my 4 top tips to get you started. We know the importance of protein. So adequate protein is really important when you are on the journey. We are trying to sustain and maintain beautiful lean muscle tissue. And there's only 2 ways that we can do that. One, to grow it, we need to be using resistance training, which is a different episode on a different day. But to support lean muscle tissue, we need to be taking in adequate protein. Now, that said, high quality, adequate protein is where I would focus my attention on. So if I'm just getting started, I'm looking at what am I consuming in the way of protein? So let's just use the common beef, right? We know that our beef sourcing is a mess in this country. It's hormone injected. It is beyond the animals are consuming a lot of grain and whatnot. I'm not picking on our farmers, but we do need to make sure that our sourcing is coming from grass-fed and grass-finished. So I'm giving you for an example. 2 subscriptions that I love are Ristelli's, and I will put this in the show notes, and then also Butcher Box. Also Butcher Box. Grass-finished is a thing for you all to know. It's not enough just to say grass-fed, where the animals are fed just grass. They've gotten very clever. And at the very end, before we start slaughter, they're fed grains to fatten them up. So now the words that we're looking for are grass-fed and grass-finished. Okay, let me move on to the second one, hydration. Hydration, again, it sounds so trite, the adequate water intake, but I did bring along a little visual for you all to see. If you are not a water drinker, the place to start is to start drinking water. Now, this is just an example of how confusing nutrition can get. So if you're not a water drinker, and I say to you, please make sure that you get your appropriate hydration. We know that the guidelines have changed. It used to be something like 8 to 12 cups. Now we are being recommended to consume half of our body weight in fluid ounces of water and not to exceed our body weight in fluid ounces of water, right? So that kind of range. Now, let's say you already do that and you were to come to see me and we would talk about hydration. The next step is to say, what is our water quality that we're consuming, right? So now the person who didn't drink water is now drinking water. Now we're looking at the water and the kind of water that they're drinking, right? So the next step would be filtered water, right? Staying away from water that's in plastic bottles, that kind of thing. Let's say that you've got that going on and somebody really wants to do the next step. I'm showing you an example. I'm not making this recommendation. I'm just showing you the many options and where people start to get confused. This is my brand new water bottle. I don't know if you all have ever seen this before. It's an Echo water bottle. And what is it? It's a hydrogen water bottle. So there's actually a button on here where I've poured in filtered water and then I turn the button on and it is enhancing the hydrogen in the water. And when I actually pull off the cap, you'll actually hear like it's a little pop and it's hydrogen infused. Do you need to know what hydrogen water is? Not necessarily, but if you start doing the research there, that's a whole nother bucket of information where when we have hydrogen enhanced water, it supposedly reduces inflammation. It helps you sleep better. There's mental clarity. I share this with you because hydration is super important. You got to know where you are on the spectrum there so we can give you some information on how to either level up or improve your water quality. Questions for me on that? Again, I was just showing you the visual, not because I want you to buy this water bottle, but because I want you to understand this is how each of the topics that we tackle, it's always going to be the answer. It depends. Where are you now? Where do you want to be? And what are you already doing that we can support and just make a little bit healthier? All right, last 2, avoiding processed foods. I'm not telling you to kick everything out of your plan. I'm telling you a place to get started so you're not wasting money paying somebody have somebody tell you to reduce your sugar, salt, and your fat in your diet. You know that. When we have high amounts of saturated and even trans fat in our food, that's not a good thing. When we're consuming stripped salt, like not to pick on Morton's, but Morton's salt, where it's got no nutritional benefit, it's just the stripped white salt, not getting into a healthier situation where like a Himalayan sea salt, that kind of thing. And then sugar. We know that sugar is bad for the body regardless. So being able to address these bigger topics before you get started on something away from what you already know what to do, this would be a great place for you to get started, just reducing the amount of processed foods, eating as close to the ground as you possibly can. And then my big finale, this is also on our website, consuming Clean 15 and staying away from the dirty dozen or purchasing organic dirty dozen. Then they wouldn't be dirty anymore. So what do I mean by that? There are certain fruits and vegetables, in part the thin-skinned fruits and vegetables that have heavy pesticides if you are not purchasing an organic product. We know this. If you look on the sticker at the grocery store, the stickers that have 4 numbers on it are your conventional produce. The stickers that have 5 numbers on it are your organic, and those are your better choices. So we're not telling you to go out and purchase everything organic, but in particular, these dirty dozen are something that you may want to consider. Things like strawberries and blueberries, thin-skinned fruits and vegetables that may have heavy pesticides on them. So a place for you to get started right before you even go anywhere else. These are my top 4. All right, I'm going to stop. I know that was a ton of information. We have a few minutes, like 5 or 10, so we can tackle these questions. So go ahead, Kristen.
We had a question about purchasing a water bottle and about any studies that could support that.
Any studies. So yes, I can give you many studies. Can I give them to you right off the top of my head? No. Again, I'm going to give you my email address and I can support that. We want to stay away from plastics. How about that? I love the idea of a glass water bottle. I love the idea of a stainless steel water bottle. I just feel like we know enough about those. We know enough about plastics to start that right on the outset, to not use them. What you got next, Kristen?
We have a question about how to measure all needed micronutrients.
Very specific.
And what about stainless steel bottles like a Stanley bottle?
Oh gosh, I have one and I'm loving it. Do you have the big one? What I really love about that Stanley water bottle is not the answer you're looking for, but I love how big it is. And so we are really moving towards the adequate water amount. There is so much information on the top water bottles. Again, my perspective is make it easy on yourself and understand I'd rather the quality of your water, you address that first, and then we can get into containers. Your best bet is going to be a glass for sure. And I do like that. I do that Stanley water bottle. I just want you to avoid the plastics.
And then when it comes to red meats, if you have to cut down on red meats or remove them, what are some other options that could help with protein and help you keep muscle mass?
Oh, I love that one. Again, we go talk about the protein. First, making sure our sourcing of our protein is good. Now, specific amounts, I'm going to allow your oncology nutritionist to answer it, but here's the rule of thumb, right? We want to be consuming high quality fruits and vegetables. A plant-based diet is really getting a lot of the research. However, we also know a little bit of high quality protein, and when I say high quality, back to the grass-fed, grass-finished, is going to be your best bet. Lots and lots of different options. And again, your oncology nutritionist can help you specifically. We're looking for that complete amino acid chain. So if you're strictly plant-based, this is an issue, right? Because we want to make sure that we are combining sources that complete that chain, that complete protein. So we know that based on past episodes that our dairy sources can be inflammatory, eggs and whatnot. So for me, really understanding the sourcing of your seafood, a little bit of your poultry, making sure that comes from a really great source. I love Vital Proteins. That's a great one that I add into smoothies. Specifics based on complete proteins is where I want you to focus. So if you are a meat lover, perhaps your oncology nutritionist might recommend reducing that amount, right? And then making sure that the amount that you do eat is coming from a source that is not causing more inflammation. There's a whole episode, by the way, in Food for Thought Library about protein. I want you to go back and rewatch that because she does, I think it's Karen Shrum, and I did that episode. You'll get a ton of resources in that one. Any other ones, Kristen, that I can answer and by the way, if you asked a question and I did not answer it completely or fully, that's not to say I'm not going to have an answer for you. I'm going to give you, once again, it's Stacey@believebig.org. You reach out with that question and I'll get you that answer, no problem, whether it's the research study or connection to somebody. Please understand my hesitation of answering a specific question based on amounts, quantities. That's something that you want somebody who's better than me at this.
Just more about research online about hydrogen water.
Oh gosh, I even said I don't want you to focus so much on the hydrogen water. We will put in there, Kristen and I will put in the show notes information about hydrogen water. Let me say this. The jury is still out. There is really good information coming in about the benefits of hydrogen water, but it's not, that's not one that I would say is a definite for me yet. So you do your own research. It's certainly really fun. I'm going to hold it up and show you what it looks like. So it turns this blue color. You see those bubbles going in there, right? It is gorgeous. But again, I want you to, the information is coming in more recent about hydrogen water. And here's the other thing, really expensive if you buy it in a steel bottle. So you'll see the bottles, the hydrogen water bottles that like this, they're on the high end, but you can also buy that in the grocery store in a steel bottle, and it's also expensive. So do your own research. Understand what I was trying to say. I'm not trying to sell you a hydrogen water bottle. I'm trying to suggest to you, where are you on the water intake? If you've got it going on and you've got the appropriate amount, it's filtered, and you feel really good about that, and you're looking for the next layer to add into your water, then start looking into that. But for most of us, we don't take in enough water anyway, right? Questions for me? Did we get through most of them?
For daily water consumption, should we look at a particular water source like an alkaline filter, etc.?
Okay. Again, I think on our website, our recommended resource is Berkey, but again, I think what's most exciting that's happening right now in nutrition, for me anyway, as I continue on doing the research, is that I think lots of folks are getting the hang of it. So again, a filtration system that is knocking out, this is my best recommendation for that. EWG, and we did a whole episode on this one as well, the Environmental Working Group. If you go to that website and you put in your zip code, it will return to you a list of all the quote unquote contaminants in your water. That's where I would start with that. Now, when you do your research for the water filtration and you have stuff in your water, you're making sure that filtration system is addressing those things in your water. How's that? EWG.com.
And then some more specific stuff, but more resources on any way to have nutrition help support hormone suppressants, nutrition and hormone balance after breast cancer.
I think that's your nutrition oncologist. The person that asked that, are they local? Gabriella, if you're local, I would be really interested in connecting you with a quick chat with Paula. And if not, I'll have Kristen send me the list of questions from their chat today, and I will ask Paula the question where you would best start. I think that's a really valuable question. I think that's one worth taking a look at. All right. If there are no other questions, a reminder, I very much want to make sure that you have those burning questions answered. And if I didn't answer them, there was a reason why. And I want to make sure that you have the appropriate resource that will guide you to your best decision. Your next steps, whatever you choose to do, you need to figure out where you are presently with this topic of nutrition. If you feel like that you have exhausted the places where you can clean up, I'll call it that, your nutrition to get started, I think that there's great value in using the connections that we are able to offer you. So you're going to choose the resource. And this goes beyond just nutrition. The way I view this journey is who do we need on your team that pushes you towards NAD and healing. And so figuring out these big topics, nutrition, alternative or complementary therapies, prayer, whatever it might be, taking a look at the big picture and then deciding on who you want on the team. That's my first. And then the second is that after you decide where you want to go next, you're using the resources and the links. Again, we're not the only answer in town, but being able to start someplace, using those websites to do your research and just placing a gentle call. This is one really important tip that I have for you is when you start to get into things like consulting packages and ongoing services, the best thing that I can offer you is you ask for a one-time only discovery call. Most places will allow that to happen. And then you're not putting a lot of dollars and cents into something you're not sure that's where you need or want to go. So making sure that you have your list of questions that are ready about nutrition. Again, I'll go back to Melissa. Melissa had some big questions, not only what she's doing presently, but other nutrition diets that she was curious about, which one might be the most beneficial. So being able to list out the questions ahead of time so you can really ask the questions and during your discovery call so you are able to take the next best step on your journey. You don't have to do it all on that one day. You just have to find a place to enter in. So whether or not you're using my 4 tips, the free resources and podcasts, a little bit of book information, or you're watching back Food for Thought, that is my recommendation for you. That's where I would start. I would not start going and paying for things until you get yourself grounded on where you need to go with your journey. And lots of us here happy to help you answer some of the questions. Sometimes it's just nice to get it out and have somebody mirror it back to you and you knew the answer all along, right? And then finally, trusting and believing that you are the one that knows what's best for your body. There isn't an oncology nutritionist or a moderator or anybody in between that knows you better than you. And any step forward is still a step forward. You may have to take a side step, you may have to take a back step, but we're not getting stuck. And getting stuck means that we're inundated with information and content, and we're paralyzed with too much. So again, my invitation to you is to sit back with it. Know that I'm happy to support you if you want to jump on a quick call or you want to email me. Again, it's Stacey@believebig.org. That's what I'm here for. I truly, not only do I enjoy nutrition, it fills my heart to be able to help you all in any possible way that I'm able. And if I'm not able to, at least allow me to give you the resource that could help you. Any final questions for me? We are at that time.
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap. Hey, listen, before you go, allow me to say, we love you. Believe Big. We adore each and every one of you. We are so grateful that you join us month after month, in particular myself. This is heart work for me. As I shared with you many times over many episodes, the love that I have for my family that have gone through this journey, I experience it along with you, each and every story. So just know that myself, Kristen, and our entire Believe Big team, we wish you a very happy holiday, and we're praying big for you. We'll see you in 2025. All 12 episodes have been mapped out, and we've got a rockin' schedule for 2025. So we'll see you in January. And for those folks that are waiting for answers to those questions, just know I'll be back to you in timely, and you can pick my brain on anything. So thank you, and God bless you. See you in 2025.